When I got there, I realized that that was exactly where I needed to be, and I had ran for so long just because I had a family member that attended, and I just wanted to make my own mark. But I had to realize that no matter what I do, I'm making my own mark because I'm the only one on my journey.
Hey everybody, it is Deja White. Welcome back to Students of the Game. This is a podcast where we sit down with former athletes and current athletes to hear a little bit about their story and their background as student athletes in the game.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is Coach White.
Hi everyone, I am Jharnika Smith, or Coach Smith.
Perfect. Tell us a little bit about you, your background, and your journey into becoming a student athlete.
I am a high school biology teacher. I've actually been playing sports since maybe 6. Of course, played softball in middle school and high school. I am currently a coach. This is going into my 4th year coaching at the high school that I actually graduated from.
And have you always played softball, or did you dabble in different sports as you were growing up?
So actually, I played soccer, and I threw the shot put with track and field. My first time throwing shot put was middle school. Then my senior year of high school, I did try out soccer, and I enjoyed that as well.
Okay, we're starting to see a pattern a little bit. Some of the other people we've had on, they've played softball and soccer. What made you want to try soccer?
I did initially try soccer when I was younger, maybe like 7. I didn't make a goal, so I never wanted to play again. However, I didn't realize until when I was older and actually learned the game that the position I played, I actually wasn't supposed to make goals. I was a defender. However, when I got to high school, I had said that I would give it a chance, and I had been saying it since my freshman year, and I didn't until my senior year, and I was a goalie. And that actually transferred really well because my primary position in softball was a catcher. So my natural skill to defend a certain area, it kind of just rolled over naturally. And it was pretty fun.
I guess you got to practice a little bit when you weren't playing the sport. So, yeah,
Yes.
that makes sense. And you mentioned shot put. Tell us a little bit about that because that's not a traditional path that people take.
It is not. Honestly, I think I was just in a place to where I'm like, let's just try something new. When it came down to track and field, I knew running was not in my deck of cards. However, I said let's try the field event. So I knew I had a strong arm, so I actually wanted to see how strong my arm was throwing an 8-pound ball versus a softball. So that was me going out on a whim trying it, and it was pretty interesting. And I think more so with track and field, it was just more so the team that made me continue to play it instead of the actual sport itself.
Tell me a little bit about the demands of these sports. So I know you had to train. Training looked different for soccer versus softball versus track and field. And then you also had to keep up with your academic goals. So how did training and balancing those academics play out for you?
Initially, it started off I would say pretty easy. I've always been just making sure that I got all my work done, straight A's. I never wanted to see nothing less. However, once I started working, I believe my sophomore year, I think that's where the challenge started. So at that time, softball was in my heart. Well, still is, but as far as in, nothing came in the way. So I did work every weekend. I wasn't able to work during the weekdays because we had games, we had practice, and I wasn't missing either. So I had to sacrifice my weekends for work. And outside of that, just as far as in me staying on top of my studies, making sure after the game or after practice, I'm going home doing work, or on break, sometimes I'm getting assignments done there. Pretty much where I can fit the time in to get my work, I just made sure that was prior to get it done when I was not on the field or at work. However, it was a challenge, but it got done.
Yeah, that makes sense. I remember when I was talking about my experience in sports, I said something similar. I would do my work on the bus. I would do my work in other people's classes. I got in trouble sometimes.
You got it.
But I'm like, if I had a game,
It
I
must be
know,
done.
yeah, I mean, we finish at like 9 at night, depending on the sport that you play.
Yeah.
And then you have to wake up and go to school at like
The next day.
7, 8. So when do you have time to do your homework if it's not between breaks or
Right.
someone else's class?
Mm-hmm.
So
That
yeah.
is what the challenge was.
All right, Coach Smith. I've just been sitting here listening to you go through your journey from middle school to high school playing the sport. What do you wish you had known when you first started playing sports?
I wish that I would have known prioritizing what I really wanted to do. For me, I needed to work, but a lot of times my work came from just driving me to get some of my wants. But as much as I worked, it wasn't a thing. And I feel like if I actually sat down and talked about the prioritizing of time then, as far as with my studies and with me actually playing the sport, I would have been able to put more into the game than I did.
I want to throw this piece in here because we didn't state it at the beginning of our chat. Coach Smith, I met you when you were playing rec softball.
I was 9. I was 9 years old.
You were 9 years of age. Now, we did cross paths when you were in high school.
We did.
Then we lost contact. And then we reunited again.
On the softball field.
On the softball field.
We did. Full circle.
Full circle.
Yes.
Full circle. Full circle. So now you are a high school coach.
Yeah.
How can you communicate with your players today to get a better output, to be productive?
So I will first start with by asking them where they're trying to go. And I asked that because I do have players that they saying that they want scholarships for softball. They want to go to school to play softball. However, then we also have those times where it's like, oh, well, I can't come to this practice because I have work. And I want them to actually sit down and think about it. With me, I worked at McDonald's. If I thought about the amount of time I gave McDonald's versus the time I put into myself and what my goals were in the future, McDonald's would have went on the back burner for a lot more reasons. I say that to say you have to actually put the time into what you really want. You're going to work, and I understand because sometimes I did have to work, so I understand the necessity of working, but you also have to make sure you're prioritizing the time for your growth in the area that you're trying to grow in. So even with some of my girls that work in fast food restaurants or at clothing stores, that is not where you want to be. And when I ask you what your goals are and you're telling me, well, the next 2 years I want to be here, I need to know that you are willing to put your jobs on the back burner so you can put in extra time for what you're trying to achieve within the next 2 years.
Are they true student athletes, or are they students playing a sport and really not looking to receive a scholarship?
If someone is telling me they want to receive a scholarship playing a sport, I would take them as that student athlete because that is what you're telling me you have aspirations to be. But you have those players that, I want a scholarship, but they also are not putting in any extra hours. But then you also have those students that they do have to work, but they are heavily interested, but they also are working on their own, and they're coming to ask those questions like, well, coach, what should I do to get here? What should I do if I want to do this? So that I think that's kind of where I would pick apart the student athlete and then those students that are just playing the sport, the ones that actually seek the knowledge.
As a student athlete yourself, when you played the game, how did you deal with not seeing eye to eye with your coaches?
To be honest, I just had to remain a student. There were a lot of times where I questioned some decisions that my coaches had, but at the end of the day, they were my coach. So I may have questions, but I feel like at that time, I maybe would voice my opinions maybe to my teammates or maybe even to my parents, but my coach, I literally felt like I just had to trust them in that moment so I can learn from the game. Either way it goes was a lesson for me.
Okay.
But as a coach, I kind of want to ask now the flip side of it. As a coach, when a player doesn't see eye to eye with you, how do you approach it?
Now it comes with now just that conversation and just telling my players you have to trust me, and explaining to them later on. I actually learned from my coach that sometimes you don't have the capacity to let you know the why right now. But being a previous student athlete, just sitting in that wanting to know, like, okay, well, why did this just happen? Why did this happen? I know how, like, that could get really crazy, especially if it's in the midst of a game or just a situation and you're just not really understanding the why. But I realized explaining your why to them would kind of help them process that why better. And it will just help them become a better student of the game.
But is it necessary to let them know at that moment?
I would say no, not at that moment, because sometimes you are not always afforded that opportunity to let them know in that moment. In some cases, it's just black and white. But those gray areas, you most definitely, I feel like explaining those gray areas to them, it will not only allow them to process the information better, but it also may come a time where they have to make a decision, and their thought process, they can think about how you process the decision you made.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sounds like you went to the school of Coach White.
How'd you know?
So this still kind of goes back to your student athlete days, and it's about not getting an opportunity that you thought you might have deserved.
Hmm.
So if you thought you were supposed to be a starter in a specific position, but you didn't get that position, how did you approach that? And what advice are you giving to your athletes today to help them overcome that?
So I will honestly say I can remember vividly this time frame in my life because it was actually my freshman year. My freshman year, I had been a starter the entire season. I started over a junior. However, playoff time came and I was sat down and I didn't understand why. It was like it was no communication as to why I'm sitting down. I was a student of the game. I didn't say anything. I was told, okay, you're gonna sit here. I sat. I was asked to come sub. I subbed, but I had no understanding on why I did not start that game. So now, how I would have processed that is I would have asked questions. I would have asked questions to get the answer that I was looking for, or even if it wasn't the answer that I was looking for, just asking that question to get some type of idea on what I should do moving forward. Because I did find out that the reason that I was sat down was because I wasn't moving fast enough, you know. So, but it's like in that time I didn't know what I needed to work on. So even now, like with my players, I try to tell them like if I am sitting them down or if I am taking them out, they know what they need to work on or they have some understanding on why they're sitting down. It's just not to, just so you can have an understanding on the opportunity to grow. So if you're losing out on that opportunity, let you know what areas you need to improve on so you can work your way to get that spot if that's what you want, or work your way to achieve this goal if that is what you want.
And that's management overall. So if we have some managers listening,
Yeah.
that is how you manage. You don't just
Mm.
take assignments away from people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You gotta let them
Um,
know what's going on.
yeah, you have
Yes.
to communicate. So that's communication skills. Have you ever had to compete for a position? So like it was you and somebody else?
Yes, I did, and that's where the catcher position came into play.
Okay.
I was a little nervous as far as back as I can remember because again I was a freshman. She was a junior. I initially came from playing JV in middle school, so it's like now under another coach in an entire new environment. So it's like coming to compete in a high school level where I know from here now the next level from high school is collegiate level, and so it's like here's I'm trying to shape my performance.
Speaking of shaping performances, you are currently a coach.
I am.
And I'm sure you're providing resources to your students. What kind of resources are you providing for students who are looking to take their skills to the next level?
I would say the resources as of right now is putting them in rooms with people they can have conversations with that can help them make decisions sooner. So even if you're unsure about something now, talking to someone who is where you want to be or where you think you want to be, that is kind of the best resource that you can use to figure out if that is the route you want to take.
I feel like sometimes students forget that all of their teachers have gone off to school.
Yes.
And them working in a school, they are now in the workforce, so they
Mm-hmm.
understand all aspects. They have
Yeah.
different points of view. So it's really great that you are exposing them to other people, especially if they're right there with them. They can
Mm-hmm.
always go and connect with them further. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's
I
good.
would say, especially what you mentioning, that we're actually in the building. Like I said, with me coaching at the high school that I graduated from, it's that different piece of connectivity I try to bring with them. Like, okay, I have literally walked these same halls, sat in these same seats, had these same teachers that you're having, and just trying to push them to tell them like how to utilize the space that you have
Yeah.
because we do have a lot of opportunities.
Yeah. What would you say are some of the opportunities that a lot of students overlook, even if they aren't playing sports?
I would say the teachers in the building. Just utilizing the people that surround you because whether they like it or not, or whether they know it or not, like you said, every teacher in the building has went to some college or university. They have experienced life. I feel like that's where a lot of our kids, they get so caught up. They feel like they know it and they don't have to seek the guidance and they know what they need to do, or they feel like they know what they need to do. And it's kind of hard for them to be a sponge sometime and take in. You have over 100 people at your disposal in a building that they don't just teach, they do more than teach. So there's no telling what opportunities you may come across.
Deja, thank you so much for going back. You actually built upon the question that we had earlier. Coach Smith, I thank you for adding that extra material because that was necessary in order to get us to where we're trying to get each student. to start their journey at a collegiate level, playing sports or not playing sports, but having something to build upon. You spoke about students being sponges. Who was that person to inspire you?
I'm going to say I stuck my sponge in a couple of buckets. I took it from my coaches. I took it from a few of my teachers. And I can say a lot of those things, they kind of just blended into who I am today. I can't give you just one person.
Okay, I'll rephrase it a little bit.
Okay.
Is there
Okay.
a particular moment that you can remember or an experience that you had with someone that sort of clicked for you? Like, this is the person or the thing that I needed in this moment to keep me moving?
Say yes, it would be a teacher. And it actually was the hardest teacher that I experienced. And it was my math teacher. And I had her all 4 years of high school. Her name was Dr. Williams. Once we realized we had her all 4 years, we're like, okay, we have to figure out how can we sustain all 4 years and be successful in all 4 years. And I would say I just remember a time going to her tutorial. And I can be honest, I did walk out the tutorial that day. She said, well, where are you stuck? And I said, I just don't understand nothing. I don't understand no parts. She said, well, what don't you understand? She said, well, write the problem down. I said, what's the first step? I couldn't give her that. And when she was just kept asking questions, I got frustrated and I left. But I would say at one point it did click. I clicked my freshman year in college because I had to call her for my college algebra class. I realized you're asking me questions because you want me to talk myself through my struggles. Like right now, I realize that I'm asking you the question on how do I do this. The response that I'm looking for at that moment was for you to tell me exactly what to do. However, moving forward in life, I realized like, okay, I understand better when I am able to analyze exactly where I'm trying to get as far as in not just getting information straight.
Okay.
Yeah, she was being a coach.
Yeah.
You just described the role
Yeah.
of a coach.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. You know, I sat here and I listened to you, and actually, I think that students, they're looking for the answer.
Mm-hmm.
The critical thinking aspect of it is missing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, as a coach, as a teacher, what do you see that you can apply in your day-to-day activities to get that creative thinking process rekindled?
Believe it or not, I have grown, or I have come to the realization that I have adapted that same line of questioning that Dr. Williams gave me. And I find myself doing it so often, and I didn't realize it at first. But I realized even with my students, when they ask me a question, I answer their question with the question. And I answer their question with the question up until they repeat the answer right back to me without me telling them anything. And I feel like once they realize that they really can solve their own problems by just thinking and just using the resources that you have. I mean, especially if you trust that you have everything at your disposal. Try to find something out on your own first. That productive struggle is real. And a productive struggle actually will help you grow way more than me just giving you the answer.
It definitely makes sense to me,
Okay.
but you didn't answer my question.
Okay.
What steps to get your students as well as your athlete? Is there a pattern that you've laid out? Not just talking to them and saying, we're going to talk it out until you figure it out, but is there a pathway to get to?
So I'm answering on two levels, and I say that because I know you're saying not with the asking questions, but that is my strategy in the classroom. I've had students who are now about to graduate and say, "Well, Miss Smith, your class was the hardest class, but you made us work and you made us think." So I would say that for my students, that is my strategy. However, on the field, when it comes down to my players, I'm still trying to figure that one out. I have moved more out of that player mindset and more into my coaching mindset, but sometimes I do still find myself in the player mindset and trying to get all the way in my coaching bag here. So it kind of gets to the point to where I'm still a student. I'm still trying to figure that part out. So I wouldn't say I have a set strategy on getting my players to understand yet.
This is an opportunity for some live coaching. Coach White, can you give some examples or a sample framework and how we can get players thinking a little bit more critically on the field based on what you've seen in your coaching career?
Well, some of the strategies I've used in the past is empowering them to have confidence in themselves, even before knowing what the task they're faced with. The mindset is you are a champion.
Deja, I guess when you broke that part up, I kind of did think about some things, like making them walk themselves through the goal of a play, because that is something that we do consistently. Studying your position so you're able to think when you're actually in that position. Okay, when I was watching this video, this player did this. So when I'm here and this happens, I should do this, or be able to analyze it in a different way. That's kind of what came to my mind when you said be able to analyze and think about what they're doing on the field.
So basically studying. That's
Studying.
how we can get people over that hump of
Yeah.
critical thinking. And then also I like the idea of like plotting. So like I can study something, but how can I apply that in my own life? That's me creating my master plan to become a better athlete. And that is where that critical thinking piece comes in.
Well, Deja, when I mentioned about being a champ, that's a mindset. So although I haven't mastered the task, but in my mind, I'm visualizing right off the rip that I'm mastering it. So that's that champion being built. So everything that I do, my whole process and focus and energy is achieving that goal. It's just building confidence within yourself. We're coaches and we're teachers. And because we have been empowered to do whatever it is required to get them to their point. So we have to continue to keep pushing, keep having that conversation. I want to ask this piece here, Coach Smith, when did you decide it was time to start looking for a college? And can you take us on your journey?
I would say with college, I'm gonna start off by saying I always knew I was going to college because I was told I was going to college. I didn't seriously take into account my college search until my senior year, and at the time I had only applied to one school, and that was Alabama A&M. And I got in and I went, but my tactic behind that was I wanted to go to a school nobody in my family went to. When I actually got to college and I sat down and I thought about that, a lot of my family members had not gone to school, and it was actually one school in particular that I was running from, which was Savannah State University, which is where I ended up transferring to my sophomore year. And when I got there, I realized that that was exactly where I needed to be, and I had ran for so long just because I had a family member that attended, and I just wanted to make my own mark. But I had to realize that no matter what I do, I'm making my own mark because I'm the only one on my journey. So no matter where I go, doesn't matter if 1,000 people went here before me or one, I realized that my journey was my journey and it was going to be different from anybody who ever touched foot on that campus.
Sounds like me. I wanted to get out of Georgia. I was like, I don't want to go to Georgia. Everybody from my high school is going to go to Georgia.
Exactly.
Coach and Deja, I really love that because during that piece, you stated that no matter where you attended college, you were going to create your own legacy. And I don't think our students are aware of that. It is their journey. They create their memories. They leave their mark. So I'm proud of you that you were able to identify that you would create your own legacy.
Took a while, but we got there.
Yes, I love that. And I want to know, how does being a student athlete feel? How has it helped you grow up over the years? What does it personally mean to you?
I would say being a student athlete was that first push towards leadership. You're expected to perform here. They're always looking at the student athletes first, and especially when you are a student athlete and you are excelling academically, everything is heightened. So I would say that leadership role, as well as learning how to be uncomfortable. High school, I went through 3 coaches. During that time, I did have a coach who didn't really understand the game. However, I loved the game. I was passionate. I wanted to play no matter what. So there was a certain level of confidence and leadership and understanding that I had to take on in that moment, because it's like I have to understand, okay, well, I have a coach right now, but my coach doesn't know the game, but my coach is here to learn. And I was that teammate that, okay, well, we're going to teach you. We're going to throw, we're going to catch. You can't throw. So just that level of being uncomfortable and just knowing that, okay, maybe we're not going to win the state playoffs this year. We're still going to grow and we're still going to, perform as a family, and everybody is going to be happy this season.
You were training to be a coach while you were a student.
Yeah.
You didn't realize it.
Inevitable, right. Did not realize it.
You didn't realize it.
Yeah.
Okay, that aligns with the next question I had for you, which was what role did sports play in your long-term goals? Was coaching ever on your radar?
My senior year is when I decided that I want to coach. I then went to Savannah State my sophomore year, and I changed my major to education. Because initially my major was psychology at Alabama A&M. When I changed my major to education, I'm like, okay, I'm going to teach biology and I'm going to coach softball. My experience being a student athlete in high school, and then that senior year experience for me kind of hit the nail on the head for me to seal the deal for with my coaching.
Yeah, senior year in college?
No, senior year in high
Oh,
school.
senior year in high school. Okay.
Yeah, because I knew I wanted to coach. I just didn't know how my coaching journey would go or where it would start. I did not know for sure that it would start at the high school that I graduated
Yeah.
from.
And talk to me a little bit about transferring from one school to another while switching your major. Talk to me a little bit about that process.
My initial major was psychology. I think I took some intro to biology classes in Alabama. Because I am now trying to be a biology teacher and my track is secondary education biology, those biology courses did not count. I had to go back and start from the introductory biology courses for my biology degree. So when you're looking at transferring, I would say make sure that your courses from school A will be accepted at school B, because the worst, I wouldn't say it's the worst, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's the worst when you don't know that you pretty much got to start all the way over. Thankfully, I did not have to start all the way over. I did just make up 2 courses, but I would say that was probably the biggest thing.
Well, I want to go back to your transfer from Alabama A&M,
Okay.
transferring from the Hill,
Mm-hmm.
going down to Savannah
The
State.
university, the illustrious University by the Sea.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I was processing you speak about ensuring that the credits do transfer over. I think the students really should focus on curriculums.
Mm-hmm.
You know, break down the curriculums at all schools in order to give them some sort of roadmap before they start venturing into selecting those classes. I think just over the years listening to students say the exact same thing you spoke on, you caught it at an early stage, because most student athletes who go off to school, they change their majors in their junior year. And that's a hard pill to swallow.
Well, Coach, I would say even outside of the student athletes, I just say just being in school, I realized that, well, being with some of my peers going through college, a lot of them do change the junior year. And I feel like it's also because they don't truly know exactly what they want to do yet. So I would say that's a situation that you kind of sometimes just find yourself in when just as life goes on, because where you wanted to be your freshman year, your views might change, and that's just something that end up happening. I would say that's very common just within the collegiate world in general.
Okay.
I'll throw my 2 cents in a little bit. In college, around end of sophomore year, early junior year, I realized that I didn't want to work in the media industry in the capacity that I thought I wanted to work in, but I never considered changing my major. I just looked at certificate programs, minor programs, and then the things that I could do outside of the classroom. So if someone is listening and they are at a point where they're realizing they don't want to do the thing that they originally thought they did, and they can't afford to change their major or go backwards and start over, just look at the resources that you already have at the school that you're in, and maybe you can add some things or do some things outside of the classroom to help you out.
Thank you very much, Deja. That was very helpful.
And what made you decide to do biology?
So it was between math and science for me, as far as in teaching. And science, I'm a very hands-on person. My favorite subjects has always been math and science, but biology was the more interesting route for me to take than studying college math that looks like foreign language to me.
One last question.
Okay.
Teaching. How did you settle on teaching?
So I have been running from teaching for a long time, and I say that to say my mom, she's an educator. And I would say at the age of maybe like 12, every summer we would work from 8 to 12. And at that time, it was preschool kids. And I loved working with the kids. However, I just knew preschool, it's just too young. And then I know as I got older, I think by the time I hit 16, 17, I ended up working another camp. Again, I worked camps every summer. Every summer I was working in some capacity with kids. And then it's like I always could imagine myself teaching, but what really made me run away from the profession was the amount of money. And that's when I say my initial major was psychology. I was going to be a lawyer. But when I actually sat down and I thought about why do you really want to become a lawyer? It was for the money. And when I sat down, it's like, okay, I asked the question, what job would you do and enjoy doing and you wouldn't feel like you're really working? And I was like, teaching. Like I really do love teaching. I do. I would say everything is not peaches and cream. However, I do love the interaction with my students and the impact that we have together. I would say that's kind of what sealed the deal on me for teaching. I was running from it from a long time, but I feel like it was always right there. Yeah.
I feel that. And I always say people have clues throughout their lives. You were doing the camp counselor thing, you were around the
Yes.
kids all the time, your parents are in the profession. So, yeah, those are your life clues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was there the whole time. I literally said I was running. I knew I was running, but it's like couldn't run too far and not too long. Yeah.
All right, Coach White.
We're down to the closeout question. Coach, as you continue to build your relationship in the community as a high school coach, what would you like to share with your community?
I would say offer what you can. If you're in the community and you have time, just pour back into the youth to guide them to be not even just productive citizens, but just be sure with them themselves and to know that they have a community behind them and they do have resources even if they're not right in their face. Offer your services.
Actually, that was right on the button, what I was looking for. Just letting the community know that there are young people in the community that really truly need their assistance to guide them on their journey. If they can assist, because it will truly make a difference in the community as well as the lives of the student.
Now, are these people who are in the schoolhouse, so like the teachers and other professionals, or are we talking about parents and other community members coming in to offer those services, be that resource for students?
Where I feel like the community aspects come in, I feel like it's the teachers, the parents, those that are just in the community of the school, and also the alumni as well. I feel like when I think about community, anybody that has a foot or a hand in that school or in that area, I feel like you fall into that community that we're speaking about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So normally when we close out a session, I say a few words about our guests. One thing I would like to share with you tonight, Coach Smith, is that I do find you as one of the most patient as well as powerful young instructors. I think you give the students the light that they need to push them on their journey. And most of the time, when we have that light, we don't realize that we have it. So let this day be known as you are the light to brighten that journey for our young student.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey, sharing
Thank you
your
for having
vision.
me.
Yeah, sharing your
Thank you for
vision
having
for
me.
the students in your community. Hopefully, the people who are listening to this, they took some nuggets, especially those students who are going to school, whether they want to play sports or whether they just want to focus on their academics and their journey into the workforce. I hope we offered them some gems that they'll take with them.
Valuable insights.
Yes, look, the more you know, the more you know.
Yes.
I love saying that because it's
Yes.
so true. But once again, thank you so much. This was
Of course.
Students of the Game. So thank you everyone for listening, and please stay tuned. Like, comment, subscribe, send us messages. We love to hear your feedback so that we can continue to make this a great show. Thank you all so much.